Morena Prudo is a dark continent calamity, or has been infected by a dark continent calamity, specifically the twin snake Hellbell. I'm going to tell you why, when, where, how, and also how many extra pairs of pants you're going to need to buy, because you'll have crapped all of your existing pants by the end of this video when you learn just what this means for the Hunter x Hunter world. So firstly, Hellbell is what's known as one of the 5 threats or the 5 calamities that were sent back to the human realm, sent back as punishment for humanity daring to step foot on that dark continent. One of them is a gaseous life form that inhabits Alaka. We've also seen a man infected with the disease calamity Zobai in the V5 facility, and that same facility also contains remnants of victims of Pap and Brion. However, up until now, we have yet to see any direct evidence of our final calamity, which is described as follows. A monster that infects its prey with homicidal desire, the twin snake Hellbell. And our main issue with not having seen evidence is that Hellbell is the only calamity that appears not to attack humans with its own force, and instead it is said to infect humans with a desire to kill, meaning that a lot of Hellbell's evidence is likely conflated with psychotic serial killers, of which there are no shortage of examples in Hunter x Hunter. In fact, there's even been several theories presented that Hisoka may have been infected by Hellbell, and the words homicidal desire have been imparted onto him in a very special way, as he often gets physically aroused by the act of killing powerful opponents, and he is always feeling the desire to do so again. I don't know if I necessarily buy into that idea, primarily because it doesn't accomplish what the calamity level threat is supposed to, which is to destroy humanity. And Hisoka, mate, he has standards. His opponents are carefully curated. He won't just kill anyone. He's a hopeless battle romantic whose heart is set on finding true love so that he and said love can rip each other apart. He's not just going to kill anyone that he sees on the street, in the same way that you're not just going to drop your pants and bend over for anyone that you see in the street. Or maybe you are. To be fair, I don't know you, and I'm not sure I want to if you're going to be going off and doing stuff like that. Although I would say that early Hisoka fits the Hellbell infection a lot more, because that Hisoka was a lot more frivolous with his killing. But another in-world figure I would put forward is Benny Delon. He's an infamous serial killer who created the Ben knives, which he subconsciously created with Nen, inspired by the screams and facial expressions of his victims, of which there were at least 288, because there were 288 knives made. But there were likely more killings in general. But he also fits the homicidal desire criteria, as like Hisoka and like the subject of this video, Morena, he thought of nothing else except for killing. It was his entire life's work. Now, Benny Delon lived around 100 years ago. He's a piece of history, but we also don't know when many of the recorded Dark Continent voyages were made. The most recent one was 50 years ago, which was the expedition with Beyond Netero, where they encountered Zobai. But before that, we don't know. There's a lot of room for Hellbell to have been brought back to the human realm 100 or even a couple of 100 years ago. But what we do know is that Hellbell was encountered by the Federation of Ochima when they explored the southeast shore of Lake Mobius, and from there it said that 99% of the expedition fell prey to Hellbell, leaving only 11 survivors who returned to the human realm alive, which is actually the most amount of people to have ever returned alive from a recorded Dark Continent expedition. 11 is a lot, and we may now know why that is. But before getting to that, I just want to linger a bit more on the word desire. This is why Hellbell may very well be the most dangerous Dark Continent calamity, because desire is directly linked to aura output and manifestation. The stronger a character's desire in Hunter x Hunter, the more powerful their expression of Nen will become. So to infect someone with desire is a pretty massive deal, and it will have grand repercussions. And that's why Hellbell has an incredibly high rating in what is known as the Dangerous Creatures Evaluation List. This is an in-world power scaling of how likely every new threat is to wipe out humanity, and Hellbell's overall ranking is an A, as in the highest ranking that a calamity has achieved to date. And in particular, Hellbell was assigned an A1 in aggression. Again, the highest aggression rank of all creatures on this list, with the exception of a nation of humans, which Togashi has also equated to an A1 threat in aggression. Togashi again showing us his high opinions of humanity by not only equating them to a Dark Continent calamity, but also outranking the vast majority of them. But with Hellbell, there are 2 very curious spaces left unknown in this criteria where a rank has yet to be assigned, and those categories are number, indicating that global authorities don't know how many Hellbells are currently present within the human realm, and the second category is fecundity, which means the ability to produce offspring, lots and lots of offspring. So humanity has frighteningly little information about Hellbell, and yet it has still been given an overall threat rating of A. But I believe the answer to the questions of numbers and fecundity may have been provided by Morena. In chapter 410, there's a close-up shot of Morena ripped straight out of a horror movie, which is Togashi's favorite genre of movie films, which is very evocative of the style in which calamities have been depicted in the manga in the past, such as Ai, who was also shown with this effect whilst inhabiting Alka. And it's very hard to ignore a panel like this, because Togashi does lead into horror imagery every now and then, but this is a very specific effect that we've only seen used in one other case. And so the comparison is drawn. Could Morena be the Calamity Hellbell? And then Togashi also goes on to draw this panel, which I absolutely love, with a completely silhouetted Morena, with the exception of two very prominent eyes. It's an extremely demonic panel, especially with the sketchy Hailey members behind her, all breaking down and displaying that soul raw desire to kill Boxen, that homicidal desire. However, in this case, as much as I'd love to cite this as evidence, it's almost certainly just a stylistic choice by Togashi. It's his way of portraying predator and prey, because he did the exact same thing in chapter 385 with Tsuraynik after Theta shot him, and he reappeared. Here, Theta was so overcome with dread that Togashi drew Tsuraynik behind her with that same silhouette, to impart that same feeling that Theta is currently undergoing to us. So the visual evidence is fun. On the one hand, the blackened eyes, they do scream Calamity to me, but the silhouette is obviously just artistic license. I think that what we're seeing is Boxen's perspective. Togashi is drawing Morena and the Hailey family in such a way to instill the readers with the same level of fear that Boxen has of them, which is the same idea with Theta and Tsuraynik. And thematically, I think this works really well because, as stated before, Togashi does equate humanity to the rest of the Dark Continent threats, so it shouldn't be surprising that humans can also take on those artistic qualities. But long story less long, I don't think that Morena herself is Hellbell, or is currently inhabited by Hellbell like how Nanika lives within Alka. However, there is a however. At the moment, there is a considerable amount of evidence pointing to the much simpler idea that Morena has been infected by Hellbell, and that this infection is rather contagious. Most of the calamities aren't immediately deadly to the humans they encounter. In fact, with most it's the exact opposite. Usually there's a fate potentially worse than that of immediate death. Pap captures you and curses you with eternal bliss as it slowly drains your life away over how many years we don't know. Ai is a codependent creature that inhabits your body. Rion seems to be similar, forcing a growth on the human head and one very disturbing one within the stomach, whereas the Zobai disease goes all out and makes its victims immortal. And Hellbell follows a similar pattern. The person infected by Hellbell doesn't die themselves anytime soon, but it gives them the unquenchable, torturous desire to kill. And the goal of Morena and the Hailey is simply to do just that, to kill. That's all they want to do. As Morena says, to put it simply, my ability is to give abilities to those with the same goal as me, and to spread that circle. Destroying Kakin is my own small goal. The larger goal we have in common is killing people in general, either directly or indirectly. We all have different reasons and circumstances, targets, and quotas. Those are our own small goals. So everyone infected with Morena's ability Contagion has their own small goal, which in Morena's case is destroying an entire nation. But you get enough of those small goals together and all of a sudden humanity, it is wiped out. And every calamity is given the designation of a calamity because they are believed to possess the power to do exactly that, to destroy the human race. And Morena using Contagion may be showing us how Hellbell is able to do just that, because it's not enough to simply infect one human with that desire. Because even if that one human was to kill every second of their life, they still wouldn't make a dent in humanity as a whole. And the true deadliness of Hellbell may be that the infected can also spread that infected through, say, their saliva. Morena's saliva could contain the Hellbell infection, and that could be what instills the desire to kill. Because Boxen has no desire to kill anyone or anything for the majority of the negotiation game, but it was only after kissing Morena a deep, messy kiss, full of all of the salivas, that Boxen suddenly developed her own small goal, which is to kill Morena and the Hailey family themselves. So it could be a coincidence that Boxen's resolve to murder people emerged after Morena's tongue had its way with Boxen's mouth, or it could be a not that. So the idea here is that Morena developed Contagion as a personal nen expression of the Hellbell infection. Being infected with Hellbell doesn't grant the Contagion ability, but it does make one contagious and instills the desire to kill and spread the infection further. So this is Morena's response to that homicidal desire. And Contagion is mechanically designed for maximum anarchy because it incentivizes killing everyone. Because civilians are worth 1 level, nen users are worth 10 levels, and Kakin princes are worth 50 levels. Without that high reward system, there would be no point in trying to kill opponents more powerful than you, be it in terms of nen or political power. However, due to those targets being so high yield, they're actually much more tempting than basic civilians, which is Morena's incarnation of of Contagion, it is designed to bring down the ruling class of Kakin, which is Morena's own personal small goal due to her history with the Empire. And yet beyond that, she still has this innate desire to wipe out all humanity, which seems to stem from, well, we don't know. But to continue with the Contagion mechanics, each player who reaches level 100 and becomes a member 0, assumedly then gets to establish their own rules for their incarnation of the game. They essentially graduate from player to dungeon master, and that's how Contagion continues to spread and destroy. Because after a while, Morena's rules would stop functioning as well, due to all of the Kakin princes being dead and having no more loot goblins to farm. But this ability naturally evolves, it doesn't remain stagnant. Each new Contagion family changes the rules to adapt to new desires and new situations. So it is a proper virus. It keeps changing, it keeps evolving, and it becomes extremely difficult to eradicate. And as for how Morena may have become infected in the first place, sure, there's a chance encounter with Hellbell on the cards, but there's also a certain man named Beyond Netro who has spread his seed throughout the Kakin Empire, and Morena may very well be another one of his children, because at this point, who isn't? And this idea is somewhat credible because Morena was an extremely gifted Nen user as a child and was able to master her talent all on her own, which would be very possible if she was initiated from birth like all of Beyond's other children. But Beyond Netro is also a bit of a Dark Continent enthusiast. He spent half a century obsessed with nothing else except for going back, and in lieu of that, he could have chosen to seek out the other calamities that already existed within the human realm. It's already suspected that he and Pariston were the ones that caused the Chimera Ant outbreak in an effort to kill Isaac Netero, because Beyond wasn't allowed to go back to the Dark Continent until his dad had died. But Beyond's plan currently hinges on the idea of the Black Whale 1 voyage falling into anarchy and giving him the opportunity to escape with his own expedition team. And having a plant with the homicidal desire infection of Hellbell would more than service that need. And just to really hammer home what an awful, awful situation we're in right now, remember that Hellbell is classified as one whole grade higher than the Chimera Ants. And Contagion, the ability itself, is more dangerous than the Chimera Ants. Because the Chimera Ants, sure, they were much more efficient at pumping out raw numbers in the beginning, and they were able to produce one strong big boy, but consider what they did. The final death toll as a result of the Chimera Ant outbreak was stated to be 478,594 civilians and 12,905 soldiers of East Gorteau. So just over 500,000 lives were claimed by the ants, and I'm not sure if this is including the citizens of NGL, there's probably no real way to count that. Either way, let's go with 500,000, and this is a wildly inefficient use of human life for the purpose of destroying more human life. Because if you gave those 500,000 lives to the Haoli family, then that is enough to create 5,000 member zeros, all of whom have 100 levels of aura boosts, instantly granted Nen abilities, and the power to infect up to 22 people each for their individual families, which gives us a grand total of 110,000 Contagion players. And what is anyone going to do against a force of 100,000 Nen users? How are the 600 to 700 members of the Hunter Association going to stop that? They're not. It's game over. And again, to compare, the Chimera Ants were only able to use those 500,000 human lives to produce 5,000 Chimera Ant human hybrids, who are still currently somewhere under Pariston's control, and that is still a ridiculously large force that I doubt any military on this maybe planet, but also potentially flat Hunter x Hunter Earth is capable of dealing with. But you can see how the long-term potential of Contagion outweighs the Chimera Ant threat. And furthermore, Contagion has one very important mechanism to ensure that all of humanity is destroyed, because the common goal of anyone infected by Contagion is the homicidal desire. So eventually, the Contagion game is designed to reach a point where all humans have been farmed and only the players remain. And after that point, the game would switch from PvE to PvP. And that's when the many thousands of Contagion families will start killing each other if they haven't already. And all of the member zeros generated from this endgame will logically set rules that benefit targeting other players, and these players are just going to continue to kill and kill and kill until only one family remains, after which point the family will start killing among themselves. And even when there's only one player left, one singular human left alive in this world, that human's desire to kill will be so profound that they'll likely end up targeting themselves and putting a full stop on the history of the human race.